You are listening to the Wholesome Way podcast, hosted by Alexander Lobb. Please keep in mind, everything shared in this podcast is for inspiration only and shouldn't be taken as medical or professional health advice. If you're making changes to your health routines or lifestyle, please check in with our qualified health professional first. This episode will begin in 30 to 60 seconds. During that time, you're going to hear a few words from two of our very generous sponsors of the show with some pretty awesome offers. So listen to this. And now, on with the episode. Welcome back, Wholesome Wayfinders, to the Wholesome Way podcast. I have the pleasure of having a new guest on in season 2, Dr. Jennifer Schlueter, who is a trauma-informed hypnotherapist, breathwork facilitator, and has a PhD in spiritual healing. Jennifer works with individuals and groups through one-on-one sessions, programs and courses designed to support deep emotional and physical healing. And after a life-changing hypnosis session in 2015, she left her role as a managing editor of 22 newspapers, to travel the world while working remotely, a journey that's taken her to over 50 countries. And her work blends subconscious healing with compassion and curiosity and is grounded in a simple yet powerful mission to learn and teach how to love ourselves, others, and life itself. Jennifer also hosts her own podcasts, Mind Your Subconscious podcast and the Magic and Miracles podcast. Got a bit tongue-tied just there. Wonderful word choice, though. Welcome, Jennifer. It's great to finally meet you and have you join me today on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Me too. Glad you reached out. So, Jennifer, hypnosis. Obviously, you're a hypnotherapist, and to all those listening today, I'm really excited to get into this topic with Jennifer because of the little understanding, I think, and the fear that people have behind hypnosis. I still don't know pretty much anything at all, which is why I've had Jennifer on the podcast today. But the reason why I've chosen this episode and Jennifer as a guest is to bridge the gap between how we understand the subconscious and how that filters into physical healing, because it's all connected. And that's I've really in this season, building your healthiest form, I've really tried to focus on the physical. But Jennifer, it seems like everything internal just seems to be at the root, and that's where we need to start. So I'm pushing against a brick wall here, but yeah, talk to me about, your story. Take me back to the beginning and, what you were doing that led you into hypnosis and spiritual healing.
Yes, absolutely. So I was actually born and raised in Germany. And when I was 19, I decided to go to LA, to move to another continent, another language, another everything, because my family situation was not very harmonious or happy or anything like that. So I was just like, bye, I'm leaving.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Exactly. I think a lot of people may relate to that one. So I left, and then I was studying in Los Angeles, and I also got a job there. And the job was at first I was an editor of 6 new newspapers. Then I became a managing editor of 22 newspapers. And that job was great. The team was great. The bosses were great. I had an apartment. I had a car. Everything was working. I had friends, and everything was amazing. And from the outside looking in, you would be like, wow, this girl has an amazing life, right? I got to go to premieres. I got to fly in a World War II plane or whatever, just because I was editor in a newspaper. That was quite awesome. Really, really cool. However, there were certain topics in a newspaper where I was like, what am I doing? Because, back then California had a water crisis, and then the neighbors were complaining about how much water the neighbors used. And I was like, that's not really something that I'm passionate about, right? It has its place, but not for me. It's absolutely not for me. So and there was more things like that. And I was like, I want to see the world. I want to impact more people. I want to just do something else. And I want to have more freedom because as a European going to the US, only having 5 days of paid vacation, it was a nightmare because I was used to traveling and all of that. So there was more points that were adding up. And then I ended up making really stupid and dumb decisions with guys and alcohol. And that's when my friend said, Jenny, you need to go to my hypnotherapist. I think she can help you. Please go. And I said, okay, I will try. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on, but I will try. And so I went to this hypnotherapist, and all I remember was she was, there was a chair. I was lying down. I kind of looked like the chairs that you're kind of laying down on. And then she hypnotized me, and I remembered that she was saying, like, put all of your negative stuff into a hot air balloon and let it fly off. And I said, okay, I'll try that. And then, while I was in hypnosis, I was doing all of that, but then I don't remember anything else. The next day at 5 a.m., I woke up. So I went home, right? I woke up out of the hypnosis, then I went home. And then the next day I woke up at 5 a.m. My mind was made up to quit my job and travel the world. It was done. Like I had made the decision. At first, my mind said, okay, let me go to Paris for 6 months and then maybe be back in LA in 2 years or something. But then I called my friend. I was like, Bibi, I have this insane idea. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to go to Paris for 6 months. And then my friend Bibi was like, why just Paris? Why not the world? And I said, you know what? You're right. And that's how I got into hypnosis. And because it was so impactful for me, I then started doing other things with hypnosis, and somebody else helped me, like another hypnotherapist helped me to really deal with the relationship with my mom, to make it a lot better, to really help me with the mindset in business and money, and to just do many more things of, like, it got me into a spiral, but like a beautiful spiral in a beautiful world of the subconscious mind. So I'm very grateful. And that's why I also saw the potential of hypnosis. And that's why I decided to study it as well.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah, it sounds like it was quite abrupt. Like, does that happen to everyone? Reading your testimonials, it sounds like a lot of your clients come to these sort of realizations and start making changes after the first 2 sessions. Does that happen for everyone, or is it like, how does that, and does hypnosis work for everyone,
Yes, so it does not happen for everyone. I cannot promise everyone something like that because everyone is different, right? All of our minds are different. Everyone has a different threshold of getting into a relaxed space of mind, which is hypnosis, which is what it is, right? And some people are maybe uncomfortable with relaxing, with focusing, with being in silence, and they are afraid because they've heard a few things. So this can happen to some people, right? Then other people, you have incredible results after one session. After one session, you have breakthroughs. You have, one girl got pregnant. Someone doubled their profit after 30 days. Another girl got rid of her endometriosis pain and symptoms. Like, crazy things like that can happen, but it is absolutely not the case for everyone. I can never make that promise because everyone is different, as with everything else too.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I guess we are all different. And yeah, I think it's interesting that you say, people have to be open to it, to receive, right? And it comes back to the fundamental part of who we are, is that, like, if you believe something, it will happen. And so I think, obviously you mentioned, eradicating endometriosis and, other pains, in the body. And like, that seems to be where it comes from, is you're choosing to believe that it can change and it can be different. So yeah, talk to me a bit about, the physical side of that. I know you've personally, healed from serious medical illnesses, like I think you mentioned TB and chronic pain. Is that right?
So the TB is, it was half and half.
Okay.
It was, so with the TB, I had that in 2019, and I was really at the verge of, I wouldn't say dying, but I was pretty close.
Whoa.
So I had to take, like, there was a day where I was like, okay, it's getting so bad that I can't even walk up a hill without really breathing anymore. And then I also had before I knew it was TB, I had tried to meditate it away. It worked very well for 2 days. However, then when you keep coughing, your mind is like, wait, you're saying you're healthy, but then you're actually not, you keep coughing. So I would have needed a lot more discipline, a lot more strength, a lot more knowledge and everything back then. Then if I had it today, maybe I could be as powerful and perhaps do it with just meditation or with just doing mindset work. However, back then I was like, okay, I need Western medicine now. And so I was taking pills and it got better. But at a certain time, there was a certain point when there was still cough, like the cough wouldn't go away fully. It went away greatly with the pills, but at the same time, there was still something that was stuck. And then my friend did a theta healing session on me. And in theta healing, you connect to the root cause as well, the root cause of your physical illness or symptoms. And when he did that, he was asking me what happened in 2016, 2017, like what was going on. And I was like, oh, shit. I had the worst, like one of the worst relationships ever. I was not voicing my needs or my desires or anything that I wanted. And I was being quiet, kind of. I was not standing up for myself. So if you know anything about physical things and how they're connected to the mind, it's because your throat is the center of your voice, is the center of you standing up for yourself and you talking to other people. So if you don't do that, you're going to have an issue with the throat. And then after that I had seen it, I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is amazing. And then another client came to me who had tension for 50 or 60 years, right? She had tension in her body. And I was like, okay, let's just look into it with hypnosis. Let's see what happens. You don't have anything to lose, right? And she was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. We did session. We did one session, tension gone, completely gone. Then in like about 2 years ago, I did a session on my best friend and she had chronic back pain. After one session, pain completely gone. It's still gone. Then she was like, Jenny, you have to help women with endometriosis. I have so many friends who have that. So you have to help the ladies with that. And endometriosis, for anyone who doesn't know, is an illness that is in the uterus. However, there is uterus tissue that is growing outside of the uterus. So you can imagine it. Some people call it even a cancer because it can be found in the wrist, in the lungs, in anywhere in your body. It's really, really painful. Every single month, women are suffering, and it's debilitating pain, and it's just really horrible. So she told me, hey, here's my friend, try with her a session, see if you can do it. And I was like, okay, let's see. And again, it worked like a charm. Like it was really, really incredible. And that's when I decided to take this into my PhD and make a case study with 5 women to do that with, and to help them with hypnosis and breathwork and other subconscious modalities to really help them get rid of their pain and symptoms with the help of their mind. So it's exciting stuff.
Wow, incredible. And yeah, let's talk a bit about the science, because I know a lot of people that, a lot of the listeners of my listeners are going to look, they really value the science behind things. And I think that even though it might not be able to be fully explained with scientific methods, I think it's always helpful to bridge the gap, especially with something on hypnosis that people are really fearful of because they don't understand, how it's happened. It's not witchcraft. it's basic stuff. It's basic mind-body connection and getting into a state of, I know you said it's getting into a state where your brainwaves are changing from beta to alpha. Is that correct?
From beta to
beyond? Beta to theta.
Alpha and then beyond. Yeah. You're correct. Like beta, alpha, and then theta. So
okay, fantastic. Yeah, talk to me a bit about that, about the brainwaves and how that is able to translate into eradicating pain, curing endometriosis, relieving tension. Let's talk a bit about that and what the findings you found in your PhD.
Yes, so I want to say I cannot use the word cure, because also endometriosis, I have not cured it, but we have been able to help with pain and symptoms. I need to be careful with my language around that. So just want to mention that.
Thanks for picking me
up. Know why. We all know why, but it's okay. So in hypnosis, right, you go into a relaxed state of mind. Same with breathwork, same with EFT, same with some other modalities that we have. today. So first, right now we are in an alpha brainwave state, which means we are in beta brainwave state, which means we're talking to each other. While we're doing that, we're both thinking, analyzing, criticizing, judging, whether we want to or not. There's always thoughts going on in our minds. When we close our eyes, that's already 70 to 80% of all of our sensory input out, right? So that means it's a slower brainwave state. It's the alpha state of mind. Then when we go even further down, it's the theta state, which is between being awake and falling asleep. So it's the state where you are before you fall asleep, or the state where you are right after waking up, right? Which is a very relaxed state of mind. And the more we go into the state of mind and the more we practice this, the better, first of all, we get at hypnosis or meditation or anything else. And then there's the delta, which is sleep, and then there's gamma, which some people call it enlightenment or love, or what the Buddhist monks have when they meditate for like hours and hours and years and years and years, all of that. So when we are talking to each other, we are, like I said, our brain is active still. When we have all that sensory input, our brain is active, and there's too much coming in. When we relax, when we slow down our brain waves, there's so much less coming in. And also we get to access the parts of ourselves that have either been buried, forgotten, suppressed, pushed down. There's a lot of things that happen to us in childhood, past lives with our ancestors that we consciously just, suppress or push down because we don't want to access that, because there's shitty things that happened, or it's not even something shitty that happened, but we associated something shitty with it, like a shitty belief or something else that just doesn't fit right. And so if we were to do talk therapy in order to relieve any type of illness or pain or whatever, right, we couldn't get to the root cause, because talk therapy is always our brain still being active and inundated with everything else. However, if we do hypnosis, we get to the root cause because we stop all the sensory overload that is happening. And science is that with hypnosis, science has really well explored that hypnosis can help with pain relief, and it can help with, for example, it is even used as anesthesia. So for people who are, For people who cannot be put under anesthesia, either they can self-hypnotize or they can hypnotize themselves to just relax and to be fine, and to kind of turn off the pain sensories, the pain receptors in a certain part of the body, and then they cannot feel pain. Then it is, hypnosis is very well researched with anxiety relief, stress relief, all of that, because it's a technique, right? Then we have other research that also goes into how trauma is affecting our immune system, like how so many people with a traumatic childhood have a worse immune system. There is more chronic disease and illness in people with a worse childhood. That's how trauma has affected us, right? But the one thing that I never found anywhere, well, I didn't find it in quote unquote science that is, Google, you can Google. The one thing that I didn't find is the connection between finding the emotional root cause and then relieving the pain. So this is why I did my study. And this is why I want to bring that into mainstream science as well. There are people who have written books on this. There's one guy, and I really want, like, if you have anything going on, really look up this book. It's called The Encyclopedia of Ailments and Diseases. And it's about a psychiatrist and psychologist who has researched all the illnesses and diseases that someone has physically and how they're connected to the mental side. And whenever I read this for myself or for other people, it is spot on.
Wow.
And there are things like, the shoulders, they represent what we're carrying. The knees is our ego. The throat, obviously, as I said earlier, it's about speaking. The back is about what is behind you. But it's also, and the lower back is also about security, stability in relationships, as well as financials. Our womb as women is the center of creation. What else? Our feet is the connection to the earth. But it can also mean if your foot is aching, actually, it can also mean that you may feel that somebody close to you is dying. It's
Whoa.
wild stuff.
Incredible. So what do you mean by talk therapy? Because I know you compared it to talk therapy. Well, just for the listeners, what is that referring to?
Yes, talk therapy is normal therapy that you may have gone to already or that you know, which is simply somebody talking to you and asking you repeatedly about your problem or just about anything that is happening, or just talking to you, and just and they always give you ways to cope, more so than going to the root cause, releasing it, and then, let's say, I'm also not going to use the word heal, but relieving your pain and symptoms or whatever. Also, think about this. Talk therapy is designed to keep people in there for years and years and even decades. People go to talk therapy sometimes for years or decades or whatever. What can they do? They can name their problem. They can analyze their pattern. They know exactly what is going on, what they're doing, what is happening, and sometimes they get coping mechanisms, right? However, how often have you heard about someone really releasing that root cause, that trauma, whatever has caused all of the things that are, all the panic attacks, all the depression, the anxiety? How often is that being done? Because no, if that would be done, then a therapist would be out of work after like a few sessions or a few months.
Yeah, it's so true. And I've discovered that for myself too. I've just completed a certified life coach training program, and which basically talks about this traditional therapy, and that they did a lot. This company that I did it with, they discovered after interviewing many therapists that only 17% of the time was it successful, and 17%.
Damn.
Yeah, yeah. It's, and you can look this up. I went through a whole rabbit hole of going down videos of other people interviewing therapists and saying, "How many clients have you cured?" Not many. Not many. Maybe one on each therapist. I'm not a therapist myself. I'm not claiming to be an expert or anything, but there's a lot of information out there that says otherwise. And what they were saying about this 17% success rate, it happened when the client decided it was time to move on. That's when it became successful, which is what you're talking about, right? It's when you've decided, wow, I know where this is coming from, the root cause, and I know that I can change it. And I believe that I can change it right now. I don't have to stay in the past for years, and which is what you were referring to. That's why therapy is in business, sadly. So it's fantastic that people like you are out there in the world and providing another way that seems to be way more effective. But one thing I wanted to ask you, you mentioned in the hypnosis state, specifically referring to eradicating and managing pain. So it talks to the pain receptors. Is it, how does that work? Like you mentioned, it's sort of like getting into that meditative state between waking and asleep. You're able to uncover what's been suppressed. So how does it, like, I'm trying to picture this visually and explain it visually to people. Is it like a shovel, like getting a shovel and relieving, some sort of goop, and then not physically, but is that the way it happens, or is it still there, but you've trained your mind to not ignore it, but keep it at bay? Do you know what I mean?
You're on the right track with the first one. So I'm going to give you two ways this is being done. The first one I want to mention is, like, you can, let's say, you're being put under anesthesia, right? Or you hypnotize yourself to be put under anesthesia, or to not really connect with the pain or receive pain, or to just numb out that area, right? Let's say somebody has to operate. Dentists use that a lot, dentists. So when a dentist is using that, then they are putting the person into relaxation, and then they're either having them focus on something else, or they're just really having them, and on something else. It's either something else in the room, something else in their body, something else in their mind, like a beautiful image or something. There's different ways to do this. And then the person can be, let's say that they can be, I'm going to say, operated on in their mouth, because they're not focused on the pain that, or what, anything that is going on in the mouth. Then you can do it by simply saying, just focus on something else. The focus is not on the mouth and on the pain. It's just being redirected, so to say. Then when it comes to other pain, like the way that I work with people is I take them to the root cause. And then let's say the root cause, okay, let me backtrack. I'm taking them while we're in hypnosis, I'm taking them into a garden or into a favorite place in nature, and then I'm letting them walk down a path. And then there are 3 paths. One is the path that leads to the ancestors, one is the path that leads to a past life, and the other one is the path that leads to childhood. So the subconscious mind will decide where the pain originated, where the root cause of the pain lies, whether that's endometriosis, back pain, shoulder pain. It doesn't matter at all what the pain is. So we go down the path. The subconscious will know which path to choose. Then we go down the path and we figure out, okay, in a past life, what was the situation in the past life? And we figure, when it's the ancestors, okay, which ancestor has started that pain or has unfortunately had to carry that pain and gave it to other ancestors? And in the childhood, we also see, okay, what feeling or situation or memory has caused the pain? And then the client will decide. And then after we've worked around one of these things, we go back and we ask again, is there another path that we have to go down? Sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a no. After that, we go into the area. I take my clients into their wombs or into their shoulders or into their back, and I have them imagine like eyes in front of their body, basically. And then these eyes can go inside of the body, and then they can tell my clients, hey, what is going on in the womb, for example. And then one of my clients, for example, she was like, so I'm seeing this valley, and in the middle there's a river, but the flow of the river is stopped by a dam. And back then she was still taking the pill, so her period wasn't flowing, right? So that was the image that she received, which was beautiful. And then we imagine that there's like a little helper or a guide inside the womb, and for her it was a womb dragon. And that dragon said, okay, eventually you need to stop taking the pill, and that will help you with your pain relief, and that will help you feel better, and more connected to your body. And after that, her pain went from a 9 to a 2. So this is the process I'm doing. And the second thing, what I also like to do really is breath work. When we do breath work, and this is conscious consecutive breathing, which is breathing for a long, long time, for like 35 to 45 minutes, always in and out, no breaks in between. And then we give the intention to release everything that has to do with the pain. And that I have found to be really, really, really effective. And the third thing is we bring the client into the future and then have them meet their future self. And the future self also is giving guidance on what the client needs to do. Do they need to change their nutrition, their exercise? Do they need to love themselves more, pour into themselves more, get rid of a boyfriend or a girlfriend or something else? People that don't serve them. So that is my personal process, and that way they feel pain relief.
Incredible. I love the idea of connecting to your future self. I've done a fair bit of that recently, writing letters to myself, but from the future to my the current me. And yeah, there's just, I don't know if anyone hasn't done this before, just try it. Like, just, even if you don't have pain, like, let's just say you want to achieve something. It could be physical, or it could be, more career based, but something that you want to achieve, something you want to change, and like writing from the future and saying, I can't explain how it felt except pure bliss and understanding that transcends time, like our linear understanding of time and space. It's one of the craziest. But as you said, as you say with hypnosis, you have to be willing to engage in the activity with an open mind. Otherwise, it's just not going to work, right? And that's the whole thing around starting from being in the right state of mind to get into these sort of activities, whether, it doesn't have to be physical pain, it could be anything. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because it's been very revolutionary for me as well. In fact, I might have to do that tomorrow. I haven't done it in a while. Yeah.
It is so powerful. And I also forgot something. So what you mentioned actually, right? Take out the pain. That is also something one can do. So imagine, like I tell my clients, imagine that you can take out either the pain or the feeling, because the pain is always associated to an emotion that has been trapped. And so when they take out that emotion, like you described earlier, let's say take out the anger that you're feeling, right? So they put it in front of them, and then they imagine a material, like, for example, a rock or a stone or something that was really, really heavy in their body. And then that stone, we make it talk. And then we ask the stone, like, why were you here? What was the lesson? How did you protect me? All of that stuff. And then we transform the stone into something beautiful so that the client can take the lessons from the stone. And then let's say we transform it into flowers. And then we bring the flowers back into the body, which the flowers have all the lessons of the stone that the stone brought. But at the same time, the flowers is something beautiful. It's not something heavy that is weighing them down anymore. So you were spot on with what you were saying.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it sounds like what you're talking about here is you use a lot of techniques around visualization. And I've done a lot of work on visualization. I went through a life and career coaching program last year, and a lot of it was visualization. What have you discovered about the power of visualization in the context of hypnosis? Obviously, you mentioned a lot of examples, but why is visualization so powerful in healing the body?
Because our mind cannot differentiate between reality and imagination. So there have been studies that have been done for people who wanted to learn the piano. Some people were learning the piano just in their head, so to say, right? They were practicing in their head. Other people were learning it actually. Or there was another study with basketballers. Some of them were practicing, I don't know, what are they called? Free throws, I think, or something like that.
3-pointers, yeah.
Yeah. So those, they were also practicing in their mind, and then the others were practicing them actually in real life. There was not a stark difference between the ones who were practicing in their mind and the ones who were practicing actually in real life. And that's the power of visualization. That's the power of the mind. And also, what was a fork before it was a fork? A fork was a thought. It was a visualization. Everything that we have in our lives has been at some point a visualization. An airplane, a lamp, a bed, a mirror. Anything has been a visualization in someone's mind before it came into real life. So this is the power of visualization. And I really want to stress this, because this is how you're going to change your life. When it comes to pain, when it comes to the career you want, when it comes to anything else that you want in life, visualization is the absolute key.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Jennifer. Yeah, it's incredible. And it's not talked about a lot. I think people sort of think it's, voodoo, witchery kind of stuff, but our minds are so powerful. And when you think about the fact that our brains can only unlock, I think it's 5% of its capacity, of its potential, I think. It doesn't seem that far-fetched to believe that visualization can actually change our bodies and our minds and our reality. And funnily enough, if you go down this rabbit hole, and there are professional teams, like in real life, that are using visualization techniques. There's a video I saw of these American Air Force pilots who literally sit in a conference room. Maybe you've seen this video. They're sitting in the conference room, and they've all got their eyes closed. They're in their Air Force jumpsuits, and they obviously fly together when they actually train. But they're in this conference room, and they're all just like pretending they're in the cockpit, and they're talking to each other as if they were speaking on the mics, and they're practicing a formation. And like that, it's not AI. Like these videos, you can see them time and time again, and it's funny how people don't talk about it and don't use it every day. Like it's something that, how does your I want to go down like the education route here because I think a lot of people need to know this stuff. And how do you see, how important do you think this is to teach kids about things like visualization and, uncovering? Because when you're kids, like you mentioned, like we have a lot of traumatic events from when we're a child, but is it important to learn this stuff as children, and should it be in the curriculum, for example?
So, that's such a deep question, and I love it. So as kids, we have that. So what we need to do is we need to funnel that into creative outlets, into actual classes. Yes, but as kids, we have that. We just unlearned that. We unlearned the ability to visualize. As kids, we are in our subconscious so much more than adults, because imagine, babies are sleeping most of the time, right? So they're in the delta brainwave state. Then they're between awake and sleep a lot more. That means they're in the theta a lot more. So as kids have this crazy imagination, all of them, but they unlearn it in school. So in order for us to change that, and in order for us to really get visualization and these techniques into schools, it means we need to change the whole school system, because the school system was invented to produce workers with Ford and everything,
that,
right? Like, workers, factory workers. That's why it's being invented, or it was invented. And so for us we need to basically boycott the whole school system, is what I want to say, basically. Because if we imagine all of us lived in a world that we could imagine, that was the most beautiful, the most loving, the world where everyone didn't have any financial problems, any health problems. This is not what people designed the system for. Like, the whole system is designed to keep you broke, to keep you sick, to keep you dependent on other people. But if we visualized ourselves in the greatest state of our minds, the people in power wouldn't have anything anymore. They wouldn't have no power anymore, no money, no nothing.
It would be an incredible world to see and experience, for sure. And so where do you think it went wrong in terms of, losing that power or that control or that space, living in the subconscious space? Have you thought about this before? Like, is there a specific point in our lives where we start becoming more sick because of emotions that we're holding on? It seems like you do a lot of work on that. So is that the cause? Like, where is there an age? Is there a specific situation that we all go through, and that's where that's the nexus?
So it all happens due to our parents. For them, it happened due to their parents. For them, it happened due to their parents. So it's been happening for generations and generations and generations. Because also most of the women I work with, especially when it comes to their womb, it has to do with something ancestral. And as women, we have been suppressed, we have been silenced, we have been betrayed, and so on and so forth, right? So there is no real just one cause or just one place where it went wrong. It's been going wrong for a long time. Also with war trauma. Every country has a war trauma. Every person living in every country has some kind of war trauma. So that's been happening for generations, again and again, over and over and over again. And it's only the few who really decide to break out, to decide to live a different life. And for most of the people who decide on that different life, it's either they have to go to a remote place in the world to not get inundated by all the things that are happening. Yeah, so that's been going on for a very, very long time.
Oh yeah, that's so right. I've actually never really thought about that, but I don't think anyone has been untouched by war. And it's whether it be like a small skirmish or a big, tribal fight or anything. And that's so true. And yeah, I feel that deeply. And I think I might need to do some work on this, but every time I am at an Anzac Day service, which here in Australia, it celebrates the Anzacs, which is the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps that fought in the World Wars. Every time I go to a service, because I'm very passionate about that, or watch a war movie, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now, talking about it. But I feel a connection across time and space, and not in a way that's painful, but I almost feel the loss like straight away. And some people are very immune to it, like that's very neutral, but I feel it very, very strongly. And I think yeah, it's made me think maybe I need to do some work on that. It could be causing pain in my body. Yeah. But one thing I wanted to ask you about, because you talk a lot about you've mentioned past lives, the ancestral trauma that's living inside us. And there was a third one, a third path. What was it?
Past lives, ancestors, and childhood.
And childhood, that's right. Okay, cool. So going further back into ancestry, so you talk a lot about ancestral trauma. How does that fit into the narrative of genetics? Because I think there must be some sort of relationship there. Like, I'd love to hear about what you've discovered, seeing both sides of it. You've done a PhD, you've seen, you've been in that scientific community. Because someone told me, another guest in natural healing told me that 20% of disease comes from only 20% is a cause of disease. The rest of it can be changed. But would you agree with that? Is genetics a thing? Can it be changed by healing emotional trauma? What's your take on that?
So I think it's actually even more that can be changed than that. Simply because there is the study of epigenetics, which talks all about that. Epigenetics is literally about how one can change their genes, because if you can change your genes by moving to a different environment. You can change your genes by eating differently. You can change your genes by exercising. You can change your genes by thinking differently, by visualizing something different. This is how you can change your genes. So there is not a lot that cannot be changed. And if you want to look into this, a great person to read about, or a scientist, is Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Joe Dispenza. They really bridge the gap between science and, let's say, I don't want to call it woo-woo stuff, but between science and spirituality, so to say, right?
Alternative health, yeah.
Alternative health, yes. I love that, okay. And I know that for me, I would never, the fact that if you believe that you have something because it's because of your genes, that's already making your body say, yes, I have that because my mom had that and my grandmother had it, right? That's already making your body believe that you have it. However, if you say to yourself, no, I can change that, your body will change. So it's absolutely possible to change the genes. Your genes are not a death sentence or a disease sentence at all.
Wow, that is mind-blowing. So genetics, the scientific version of it, DNA, is ancestral trauma the equivalent of genetics?
I like that question.
Like just to break it down. So, because obviously you said that you can change it more. So is that just the scientific ancestral trauma and emotional blocks, just the scientific name? Sorry, the equivalent in science of genetics. Is that the answer?
I would say, I love it. I would say for sure, partially. Like, I cannot, make a claim for 100%, but I would definitely say partially, because to give you an example, right? I am German. All 4 of my grandparents have been in World War I. One of them has been in World War I and II. Actually, 2 have been in World War I and II.
Wow.
When you think back to that, you know that there was a lot of hunger. People didn't know where their next food was going to come from. They would save up food because they just didn't know when they were going to have more. So ask any German how hard it is for them to throw away food, or to to not save food in a Tupperware. I think Tupperware is probably even German, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure, but like
Yeah.
to not save the rest of the food in the Tupperware. So it's something that is in us because of our ancestors. And if you ask, I was working with somebody who had trauma from the Vietnam War. She was Vietnamese, and then she or her parents immigrated into the US. There was a lot of trauma there. So we are all affected somehow by our ancestors and our genes. And I do also think it translates, right? If there's one generation now that, let's say, we don't have, like you and I, right? We're not in a war. Then that's going to affect the next generation. But if the next generation would be in a war, then their genes are going to change again. Because their bodies are going to change. Their minds are going to change again.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of refers to, I guess, almost survival of the fittest, right? You just react to, and you were talking about your environment, like the genetics comes down to environment. You know, we adapt to based on the conditions that we're living under. And that's so spot on. Like, you know, if you've said if you change your conditions, then you can change your genetics and your the state of your body. So yeah, that's incredible. I love that.
And that has been proven scientifically. So
yeah, no, absolutely. So moving on to your clients. So I'd love to hear the most insane transformational story that you've come across, and the person that you've helped. You don't have to name names, or just anything that just like absolutely blew your mind. And if you can, relating to something changing physically, like in them.
Yes, so that has definitely to be one of my clients that I've helped with endometriosis. And I'm allowed to speak about their journey, so I will. This girl came to me and she was like, I have endometriosis. The pain is a 10 out of 10. It's debilitating. I can't go to work sometimes when I'm on my periods. I can't do anything. I just want to stay at home and just like not do anything. She was also in a relationship that she said she was not speaking up for herself. She was doing all the things and she was not really asking for help either. And we did 2 sessions. And after, I think on the beginning of the 3rd session, before we even did the 3rd one, she was like, my pain went from a 10 to a 2 after 2 sessions. So she basically had barely any more cramps, any more period pain. She had no more pain when she had intercourse. She felt incredible, like she felt light, she felt amazing. She even had a really, really huge conversation with her boyfriend about, you know, how she is now or what she would like to do now after the session, because she's seen how that has really caused her to not be the best version of herself, I would say, because in relationship, right, it's normal. Sometimes we lose ourselves, then we find ourselves again, but we have to make a point in finding ourselves again. And then in her 2nd cycle, after we worked together, it was only 3 sessions. In her 2nd cycle, after we worked together, she went from a 10 to a 0, or from a 2 to 0. And to me, that's just mind blowing. She can now work. She can now do anything that she wants. And she's just, it's been amazing. It's been absolutely incredible. I'm still amazed. And then there was another client who she had, I think, 3 miscarriages in total. So 1 miscarriage, but then she also had a child already, but then 2 more miscarriages. And she was eventually a pregnancy coach because she was able to help herself with nutrition, with exercise, with all the other things. But then she was trying for a 2nd baby and she just couldn't. And like, it didn't work, even though she was doing all the right things physically, exercise, nutrition, all of that stuff. And then she came to me and she was like, yeah, I really want to work on this. So what we worked on in the session was really healing the miscarriages, speaking to the souls that she had to let go or that went away, basically. And we really talked to them. We talked to the angel babies, is what we call it. And we also discovered that she had a birth trauma from her first birth because something happened with her mom and her husband and all of that. And so after that session, she got pregnant. And when I got the
What?
message, yeah,
Oh my gosh.
when I got the message, I almost cried. I was like, are you serious? And then she's sending me, like eventually she also sent me the image of her child. And I was just like, that was one of the best things that ever happened. Like that was just absolutely incredible. Absolutely.
Oh my, that is insane. And how long had she been trying for the second baby?
Oh, definitely for over a year. I think a year or two for sure.
Whoa. What a transformation. That is insane. After the session, I can't believe that.
And we worked on her perfect birth, like we said, okay, we visualized it. Now here we come back to visualization.
Full circle.
Yes. We visualized the perfect birth and she had it. She was able to have it. And it was just, this was really, truly amazing.
Wow, that is beautiful. What a testimonial. So after talking about all this, it's obviously given me a lot of understanding around hypnosis, and I hope it has for everyone listening today, because it's amazing work, and it definitely, after what you've explained, Dr. Jennifer, it's definitely something, and if you open your mind to it, you can accomplish wonders and be the true and healthy version of yourself. So yeah, I love that. Absolutely love it. Bringing it back, I always love to bring in something practical that my listeners can put into practice based on what we've been talking about today. So I'd love to know what do you believe is the most important mental shift or deeper subconscious shift that people need to make to heal their bodies, down to the simplest thing, like a painful groin or something, Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing. So what we need to do is, first we need to make sure that we understand that our bodies are speaking to us in messages, but they're not fighting us. They're not saying, hey, I'm here to cause you pain. No, 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 no. I'm going against you, blah, blah, blah. No, we need to understand our bodies are working with us. They're working for us. And every single symptom or pain or illness that you have is speaking to you. And it's saying like, hey, please listen and work on this, because I don't want to go on like this anymore. And you do this best by really taking some time for yourself. For me, the best time is either after waking up or before going to sleep, because that's when we're closest to the theta brainwaves, the closest to a hypnotic state, meditative state, right? So when you do it then, you just take some time and you focus and you go into meditation. And for that, I really want to say that either you put on some meditative music on YouTube. YouTube has a lot of this, or you do a meditation, on a guided meditation on YouTube or something, and you really speak to the part of your body that is affected, and you ask the part, what is going on? What do you need? What can I let go of? How can I help myself heal this? Any question that you want to ask. And I guarantee that when you are practicing this, for some people it'll work the first time, right? They don't have to practice, but most of us, we have to practice it. And so with practice, everything gets better. And when you practice this, your body will answer, and it will become very, very clear what is going on and how to help yourself. And then the most important thing is you have to listen to that. You have to listen to what your body's saying.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it speaks to a very common recurring theme in this podcast, which has been intuition.
Yes.
Like truly, as you said it so eloquently, listening to your body, and that it's not going out there to get, to put you down. Your body is trying to help you. It's sending you messages. I love that. It's such a good message in itself.
Yeah, thank you for repeating that. That was perfect.
Yeah. No, of course. Well, Dr. Jennifer, this has been an incredible conversation, and it's completely, I think we've been close. I think we've got pretty close. We'll see what the listeners have to say about busting the so-called myths around hypnosis and hypnotherapy. So I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to speak about this, and you so giving your time to share it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your beautiful energy and for the work that you do, because your podcast is also awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Likewise, loving your podcast. I'm gonna have to listen more to them in the future. But before we wrap up, though, I do have some bonus wrap up questions if you have some time.
Yes, of course.
Amazing. So number one, what is the book that changed your life? Oh, sorry. The first question is, sorry, I jumped the gun there. What is your number one guilty pleasure?
I think my number one guilty pleasure is chocolate. I love chocolate.
That's also another recurring theme on the podcast.
Great.
People, it's always podcast. Yeah. Except for my first guest, and he said going to the theater. Wow, you're just a pure human being. But yeah, I agree. Dark chocolate is my favorite. It's definitely a big big guilty pleasure. I love it. The book that changed your life.
I would say the book that changed my life is, it's hard because it's between The Alchemist and The Secret. Those two.
The Secret, you said.
The Secret.
Okay.
But The Alchemist came first, so it's it's a close run between the two of them.
Nice. And the biggest life lesson that you've learned to date?
The biggest life lesson that I've learned to date is, for me personally, when I put myself first and when I make myself happy, and when I really stress that, then everyone else around me will be happy too, and I will inspire people when I feel my best. So that's the biggest lesson.
Amazing. Yeah, I can resonate with that a lot. You know, joy is contagious, and we need more of it in the world, especially today. It's a very uncertain and crazy world, so it makes a difference to share and connect and spread joy. So I love that. Amazing.
Absolutely.
And of course, where can all our lovely listeners follow your journey and reach out to you after this?
Yes, so if anyone is interested in doing hypnosis or learning hypnosis, I also teach hypnosis. You can find that on my website. It's mindyoursubconscious.com. And on social media, you can find me literally anywhere: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, under my name, Dr. Jennifer Schlueter. And I'm sure we'll put that in the show notes as well. So, because my last name needs to be put somewhere for people to spell. And yeah, so pretty much anywhere.
Incredible. Thanks so much for sharing, Jennifer. I'll make sure to put those links in the description if you enjoyed this conversation and you want to reach out to Jennifer, or even just pop a comment down below. But otherwise, Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And I look forward to having you on again in the future. I think we've sort of just break the iceberg there on hypnotherapy. So I might have to have another episode.
That sounds great. I would love to come back, Alex. Thank you so much for your energy.
Of course. Thank you so much. Well, thanks everyone for listening today. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share it, and rate the show if you haven't already. And until the next episode, stay wholesome.